The African Savanna, an expansive region that is arguably Earth's most iconic type of biome, being home to many of the planet's most famous creatures, as well as the birthplace of the Serengeti, a sub-region of this massive sprawl that alone is larger than the state of Connecticut, and home to a near countless amount of animals, while also being one of the most diverse places on Earth when it comes to megafaunal mammals. And because of how famous it is, and the African savanna in general, the word savanna often goes hand in hand with the continent of Africa. But in reality, a savanna can be found anywhere. After all a savanna is an environment where woodland and grassland are mixed, and that the trees are spaced widely enough so their canopy doesn't close up. And thus, worldwide, you'll find many others besides the African savanna. And amazingly, there is even one savanna out there, not on the African continent, that not only beats the Serengeti in animal diversity, but is also vastly larger. And the crazy part is, you've likely never even heard of it. But today, you will. And this is the Cerrado. It is within the central region of Brazil where you would find this vast tropical savanna, which spans for a shocking amount of distance, encompassing nearly 2 million square kilometers of land. Meaning that if it was its own country, it would literally be the 13th largest on the planet, edging out the likes of Mexico. It's also an extremely fertile and bountiful land, where the climate is fairly reasonable, with the average temperature hovering between 22 and 27 degrees Celsius, or 71 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit, while the precipitation averages between 80 and 200 centimeters annually, for over 90% of all the Cerrado. So while it does have a distinct dry season, the amount of rainfall here overall is still quite high, and is partially the reason why this savanna is the most biologically diverse of all savannas, at least when it comes to plant diversity, boasting over 10,000 various flora species, with 37% of them literally only being found here, truly making it a one-of-a-kind environment. But it's not like the savanna is just one giant mixing pot of plants, as a mosaic system has taken root here, no pun intended, with the land shifting in environment and the dominant flora type changing as you move along, resulting in each local area being pretty unique in its lonesome. Although, that said, there are a few trees that still hyper-dominate the region, accounting for large amounts of the total flora, with the main players being the Vaucaceae, Fabaceae, Malpighiaceae, Myrtaceae, Delaneaceae, and Oaknaceae. And what's interesting with the plants here isn't just the total variety. As compared to elsewhere, these plants are also very ancient, with many of the plants tracing back, at least in prototypic form, to the Cretaceous period, when Brazil and the rest of South America was still attached to Africa, making the Cerrado in some ways a true lost world. And its almost magical nature is only empowered by another key trait about it, which is there's a lot of water. You see, the Cerrado is actually informally known as the Cradle of Waters, possessing a unique hydrological cycle that consists of 8 of the 12 major water basins within South America, as well as a large amount of high-altitude waterfalls and normal rivers, resulting in the Cerrado being a haven for life. And life, there is a lot of. So much so that along with being the most diverse savanna in plant diversity, it is also the most diverse when it comes to not just mammals, but reptiles too. And sure, nearly every place has mammals and reptiles, yet the ones found in Cerrado are like the Serengetis, in the sense that they are extremely exotic. What's more is that just like the Serengeti, the Cerrado has its very own Big Five animals, and one of them is certainly a very strong contender for the strangest megafaunal land animal on the planet. And that would be Myrmecophaga tridactyla, also known as the giant anteater. When you look at the skull of one of these guys, it's seriously hard to imagine that such a thing really exists. And yet, in the Cerrado, it does, and in great numbers at that, with the savanna being home to the most giant anteaters in the entire world, with a population of over 10,000 strong, and very hard to miss. And this is because they are surprisingly large creatures that can measure up to 7 feet or 2.1 meters long, which is longer than the average NBA player is tall, while also weighing as much as a large male cane corso, making them the biggest living anteater and the biggest member of Pelosa, the order to which they belong to, which contains anteaters and their closest relatives, the sloths, which, by the way, have also been recorded in the Cerrado as well, but much more rarely due to their dependence on trees. Now, both animals, being Pelosans, are also xenarthans, a superorder of mammals native to South America that were once much more diverse and widespread, but are now quite limited in terms of variety. Yet, of the ones that we could have potentially kept, I have to admit that the giant anteater is a pretty good one, as almost nothing is normal about it. It's obviously quite the striking animal thanks to its very bushy tail, colored fur that takes on the eerie shape of a second head, and then of course its elongated snout, which makes it the icon that it is. And looking at this thing, you might start thinking that their head is actually some sort of deformity, but really it's just an adaptation for their highly specialized lifestyle. And over millions of years, these skulls have narrowed and elongated into a tube-like shape, and have lost all their teeth, all to benefit their unique soul-eating tool, their tongues. And surprise, surprise, these guys have extremely long tongues that are longer than a ruler, spaghetti-shaped, as well as highly sticky, and not to mention backed by powerful muscles that allow them to shoot the tongue in and out at a rate of 160 times per minute, turning their tongue into a biological minigun of sorts. And the purpose? to terrorize ants and other insects. Giant anteaters are, as their name implies, insectivores, who primarily eat ants or termites, but are known to chow down on other bugs as well. And to support their large bodies, they will travel far and wide every day to ravage up to 200 nests and hives, which they do so with the help of the large formidable claws that can rake these structures apart and thus exposing the inhabitants. And after that, it's game over, and each adult can consume up to 35,000 insects a day, or over 12 million bugs a year. That's a pretty good KD ratio, if you ask me. And even though they have been designed specifically to prey on bugs, their claws still make them formidable to other animals, being capable of inflicting deep puncture wounds and severing major arteries, with there actually being cases where people have been killed after having their femoral artery cut. So yeah, they can handle themselves. And yet, with that said, one of the other big five can still score up with it, and does so rather regularly, despite all the risks. And this would of course be the king of the Sahadu, the jaguar. Now, I'm sure to most of you the jaguar is a bit more familiar, as it is a well-known predator from many parts of South America. But the Sahadu, that is a stronghold for the big cat, being home to the second largest population after the Amazon. It is also the largest terrestrial predator in the Sahadu, growing up to 1.85 meters, or 6 foot 1 inches, and weighing up to 158 kilograms, or 348 pounds, making them the third largest cat behind tigers and lions. And most of them are adorned with the classic striking pattern that we've all come to know, but certain individuals do have a black melanistic pattern that results from a genetic mutation, which when that occurs, we often call them panthers instead. Mutation or not though, all the jaguars of the Sahadu still retain their razor-sharp retractable claws that allow them to firmly grasp prey after having sprung an ambush, using their rich patterns to blend in with the vegetation. And once they get you, things do not end well, as they will kill you with the most unique technique of all the big cats, and that is by biting straight through your skull, right into your brain, and thus killing things instantly. And they're able to do this thanks to extremely robust and powerful jaw muscles that allow them to bite the hardest of all big cats, with some studies registering 2,000 pounds per square inch, which is double that of a lion despite being quite a bit smaller. And because of this power, they are capable of taking down virtually every animal in the Sahadu, regardless of their size. But there is something that even the jaguar can't take down, and that's unfortunately habitat loss. Because while the world's been focused on protecting the Amazon, deforestation has quietly shifted south into the Sahadu, and in just 50 years, more than half of the savanna has been cleared, mostly for large-scale soy production. Everything I've just shown you, the giant anteaters, the jaguars, and more, are living in what is essentially fragmented islands of wilderness, cut off from each other. Which is why I'm excited to be partnering with my friends at Planet Wild again, as they have actually done a project restoring the Sahadu. Now, if you don't know Planet Wild, they're basically crowdfunding for conservation. They choose a new partner every month aimed at protecting animals, forests, and oceans, and this is backed by a community of around 20,000 members, including myself, whose contributions are used to fund these missions. And the best part is that we as a community get to see how our contributions are used through monthly video reports here on YouTube. And like I said, one of their most recent missions was in the Sahadu. They teamed up with the Black Jaguar Foundation to help to build the longest biodiversity corridor in South America, a 2,600 kilometer stretch that would reconnect the Sahadu to the Amazon along the Araguaia River. And the way it works is pretty clever. You see, Brazil actually has a law requiring landowners to restore native vegetation on their property. But in practice, a lot of farmers don't have the resources or expertise to pull it off. And that's why, together with the Black Jaguar Foundation, they worked directly with these farmers and helped them give degraded, low productivity land back to nature. And so the Planet Wild community itself has restored 30 hectares of degraded Sahadu land, along with 3 years of monitoring to track how the ecosystem recovers. And piece by piece, these restored patches link up into a corridor that lets wildlife, jaguars included of course, move freely again. Now, I've been a member for a while, and I think it's a great way for individuals to make a real difference. You can give whatever amount works for you, big or small, and cancel at any time. And because this one hits close to home for this video, I'll cover the first month for the first 100 people who sign up using my link in the description. So if you want to join a growing community that makes a difference, scan the QR code or click below. And if you want to see them in action first, check out their Sahadu mission, also linked below. And now, back to the video. And this includes another one of the big five that is actually even larger than the jaguar, being the heaviest terrestrial animal in these parts. And that is the elephant equivalent for the environment, the tapir. Like the giant anteater, this is one of the more unusual and exotic looking megafauna we still have around. And it's not hard to see why, as the tapir literally looks like a mix between a pig and some sort of elephant, due to its short yet highly flexible and prehensile snout. Now, they're quite shy of humans, and certain laws keep them rather inaccessible, which is why you don't often see them alongside people, besides also their location. And thus, many don't know how truly big these guys can get, with adults sometimes weighing as much as 320 kilograms or 710 pounds and measuring over 8 feet long, tail not included. So yeah, they're bigger than lions, just for reference. However, despite actually looking large, tapirs are in fact heavier than you'd expect given their volume. And the reason for this is that they possess quite a robust skeleton and sport exceedingly thick skin, especially in the back of their necks and around the face, which is, as you might guess, in order to protect against predators. And from a self-defense perspective, tapirs also possess a surprisingly strong bite force, which is strong enough to at least inflict catastrophic injuries to humans. And we know this based on a rather interesting event in which a farmer attacked a tapir with a knife. And this tapir was not even that big, it was medium-sized. And despite receiving numerous stab wounds from the farmer, it was still able to deliver enough bites that by the end of the scuffle, both human and tapir were dead. Yeah. However, though it obviously has a wicked bite, the tapir is ultimately a herbivore, not a predator, who uses its mobile nose to tear various vegetation and maneuver the food straight into its mouth, kind of like an elephant. And having a huge schnoz also has some other benefits too, as it gives them a great sense of smell and also doubles as a snorkel whilst they're swimming, which they are, by the way, excellent at, and they are known to leap into water while threatened. This said though, they are still quite fast runners on land if they need to be, and are well known for being great at scaling a variety of terrains, including rugged ground, in record time. And while its immense size might not always deter jaguars, it does prevent most animals from preying upon it, including the fourth of the big five, the maned wolf. Now, unlike what you'd expect given the name, this is not a wolf, and it's not a fox either, in spite of its fox-like coloration. Instead, the maned wolf is the only living species of the Chrysoscion genus, meaning the golden dog, and it is the most common wild canine within the Cerrado. It prefers establishing its home in areas with scattered bushes and trees, and lives a crepuscular lifestyle, being mostly active during the twilight period. And as you can probably see, it's quite the unusual canine in terms of its body plan, having a short body but very long legs, an adaptation that helps them stand above the abundant tall grass in the Cerrado without having to be very large themselves. And overall, the maned wolf actually isn't that big, especially when compared to other continents' large canids, with adults on average weighing the same as a bulldog. And yet, despite that, thanks to their legs, they are the tallest of all wild canids. And given this light and a bit wonky build, they don't hunt large animals, instead preferring small to medium-sized animals such as rodents, rabbits, birds, and reptiles, and in some cases even aquatic prey, such as gastropods and fish. They are also extremely nimble hunters, being capable of not only chasing speedy animals down, but also literally catching birds mid-flight. Scavenging is also on the menu as well, no pun intended. And while they won't pass up a protein-rich meal, the maned wolf is actually an omnivore. And in fact, not only is it an omnivore, just one fruit alone accounts for 40 to 90% of its entire diet. And it's an apple, the wolf apple, which, like the maned wolf, is a rather confusing name considering it's not an apple and is actually more tomato-like. But regardless, this stuff is like catnip for these guys, and they will actively search for it year-round, also being the main way the seeds of the fruit are dispersed. And it's seriously important that these guys eat their veggies, as on strictly meat diets, maned wolves are known to develop bladder stones, which are obviously not fun. And other unique tidbits about this false wolf is that they have an excellent sense of smell and an even more amazing ability to hear thanks to very large ears, which helps them stay alert to even the quietest sounds of prey and potential threats. And because of this, if you were in the Cerrado, you probably would not run into a maned wolf. But you might smell one, as they are known to communicate and mark their territory with urine, which in this case is characterized by a distinct weed-like smell, which is a result of pyrazine, which is also found in cannabis too. So I guess you could say this guy's pretty chill, which is just like the last of the Cerrado's big five, in fact, the giant armadillo. Similar to its fellow giant anteater, this creature is a xenarthan, only belongs to another family, the Chlamyphoridae, which contains modern and extinct armadillos, including the once massive glyptodonts, that could reach the size of small cars, and lived where the Cerrado currently is as well. And while the giant armadillo is not nearly as large as these guys were, it has retained some of that size at least, being the largest living armadillo, with record specimens sometimes weighing a staggering 80 kilograms or 180 pounds, making it larger than the average person, while also measuring over 5 feet long. And the pretty obvious reason why it weighs so much is due to its armor, that covers a good chunk of its body and is composed of a thick shell of osteoderms, which are then covered by keratinous scales, giving it a fairly impenetrable defense. And in their case, it's much thicker and robust than the armor seen in normal armadillos. Yet a drawback to this is, unlike its kin, the giant armadillo can actually not roll up into a complete ball, only being able to do this partially. And to perhaps make up for this lapse in flexibility, the armadillo does have, proportionally, the largest frontal claws of any land mammal, which allows it to burrow at lightning speed in order to escape from predators when the armor just won't cut it. And these claws also double as a great way to forage for its main source of food, which, like its Cerrado distant cousins, is termites and ants, with these guys often consuming the entire population of a termite mound in one go. So, makes me think I should have sent one of these guys to my house instead of an exterminator. Probably could have saved a bit of money. And to a lesser degree, they have also been spotted eating larger items, such as worms, spiders, plants, and, get this, even snakes. Yeah, snakes, which they dispatch with their claws before devouring with their up to 100 teeth, which is, by the way, the most of any known land mammal. Within the Sahadu, they tend to stick to the most open areas and prefer to get active during the night, making them one of the trickier of the big 5 to spot. And with it, we also complete the pentology. But truthfully, these 5 only make a drop in the ocean that is the Sahadu, as it has thousands of species overall, many of which are just as unique as the big 5. For starters, there is not just one, but multiple non-human primates to choose from, with at least 7 species of monkeys being known of, including the black howler monkey, black tufted marmoset, and multiple types of capuchins. Obviously, because the Sahadu is a savanna with little trees, the diversity here isn't as strong as the Amazon rainforest, but I dare say the individual troops are much more interesting than the Sahadu, especially those of the capuchins. And in recent years, scientists have realized that capuchins in particular have been adapting to the Sahadu landscape, spending more time on the ground instead of trees, and using a variety of tools to improve their standing, including, by the way, stone tools, with one study even claiming that the capuchins of the grassland have been in their own kind of stone age for about 3,000 years. And though perhaps not as smart, but still crafty and human-like in their own way, these parts are also home to a variety of parrots, including the hyacinth macaw, a deeply rich blue parrot that lays claim to the largest parrot on the entire planet by certain measurements, which is partially why it also has a seriously large and powerful beak that's capable of cracking coconuts, macadamia nuts, and probably a finger as well, if you're unlucky. And similar to the capuchins, they too have shown signs of tool use, albeit much more rarely, with the main presentation of this coming from pieces of wood and leaves, which they will use to hold nuts in place while they bite at them. So, a cool bird, no doubt, and the Sahadu is actually full of cool birds, some of which look like they came straight out of Jurassic Park, like the greater rhea, the biggest native bird in South America. Now, it is a flightless type of bird, which kind of looks a bit like an ostrich, but comes from its very own separate order, and is a common sight in the savanna thanks to their tall build and bulk, with each adult usually weighing between 20 and 27 kilos, or 40 and 60 pounds. Many of them stand up to 5 foot 7 inches, but the tallest can even measure 6 feet and weigh a bit more, so around 183 centimeters. And this height allows them to effortlessly peer over the tall grass and spot the yummies, which in their case is quite a bit, with the greater rhea's diet consisting of foliage, insects, scorpions, fish, rodents, reptiles, and even other birds. And these guys flock together, even during the non-breeding season. They can form groups up to 100 strong. And if you see them running at you, you better start running as well, as greater rheas can be exceptionally territorial. And then you have the smaller, but even more ancient, and those are also a common sight too, being the sole survivors of the Caramia and are, fun fact, actually related to the extinct terror birds that once ruled these lands. And while not to the same degree of the terror birds, they do terrorize animals like their ancestors, using their sharp and curved beak to feed upon insects, frogs, rodents, birds, and snakes. And so at this point, it may seem like snakes are getting lit up in the Sahadu, and while there are many animals that prey on them, they aren't exactly pushovers here either, and they do just fine in the savanna, and are in fact one of the most common reptiles, period. Over 200 species of snake call this region home, with multiple groups like vipers and the coral snakes being quite venomous. And when I say quite, I mean very, making every step a fun little gamble in the savanna. And then this place is also seasonally visited by larger non-venomous snakes too, including the green anaconda, the heaviest and widest snake on the entire planet, and obviously more than capable of grappling a person to their doom. Now, they tend to live in areas of the savanna that get flooded when the wet season starts, but frankly, even just knowing that they're out there, it's a pretty strong reason for me to not want to take a hike here, at least not alone. And a similar situation is also seen with another renowned group of, let's say, infamous animals, spiders, which are even more diverse in the Sahadu, with one study, strictly limited to grass, finding over 100 different species, while another that looked at the area around water sources found 300 species. And then on top of that, lizards, rodents, other armadillos, bovines, and many, many more animals call this place home as well. So it can get pretty darn lively. And don't forget, this is all only talking about life in the actual savanna. We haven't even got to the waterways that harbor their own little worlds. And remember, the nickname for this place is the Cradle of Waters for a reason. And in some ways, the water is even more chaotic than above, housing some pretty devious animals, including a multitude of crocodilians. And as you get closer to the Amazon, you'll find an increasing number of caimans, with several species being known to the area. And across the board, these caimans greatly range in size, some being the size of a shoe biter, all the way up to the tear you to shreds size. And in a way, caimans can be the largest animals you meet in the Sahadu, with the largest individuals measuring up to 19 feet or 6 meters long, and weighing over half a ton, with some claims even reporting larger sizes than that. And so, they alone are a pretty good reason to refrain from swimming here. But in case you need some more convincing, know that In these waters, you can find not only a range of piranhas, but also the piraiba and arapaima, two exceptionally large freshwater fish that can be 3 meters or 10 feet in length and weigh as much as 2 fully grown American men. And then on top of that, human deaths have been attributed to both, so there's that too. On top of this, aquatic snakes, freshwater stingrays, water insects, crustaceans, and parasites are just a handful of other life forms you can find lurking below the surface. Not to mention there's also giant otters in these parts as well. And don't let their cuteness fool you, as these human-length mustelids are cooperative apex predators and have been known to even take out small caimans and anacondas, utilizing surprisingly sharp teeth and their excellent vision. So yeah, the Cerrado is clearly a bustling region, yet the sad reality of it, as I mentioned before, Planet Wild, is that, while wondrous, it has fallen on hard times, and this dilemma, of course, is our fault. And sadly, and unsurprisingly, as I mentioned, these events have taken quite a deep toll on the wildlife as well, with many of the animals I talked about being at least near threatened or vulnerable. And it's believed that millions of mammals, reptiles, birds, and fish are killed here every year. So if you want to support this beautiful ecosystem, remember to check out Planet Wild. Thanks for watching, and until next time.